Welcome back, guys, to the Player First podcast. I am your co-host, Coach Fernando, and we also have Coach Leo, our other co-host here from London, UK, with the Football Domain Academy. I am in New York, USA, with Tempo Soccer Academy. Okay, and if this is your first time watching us here, just sharing our mission, as always, here with this podcast is to educate youth soccer players, specifically club players that are looking to improve their level of play or they have higher aspirations in the game. So, Coach Leo, how are you doing today? I see you're in a different location, first of all.
Yes, Coach Fernando, I just wanted to say that your introductions get better and better each week.
You have no idea how much I practice every day. Practice makes perfect, they say. Perfect practice makes perfect.
I was about to say, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, as you can see from my red tan, I'm currently in Spain at the moment. Here until next week.
Excellent.
Excellent. To keep the consistency, I done whatever I could to make sure that we done the podcast no matter where I am in the world. So,
absolutely, that devotion, I love it. That devotion's our purpose.
But yeah, all good.
And so today we're talking about the importance of being over prepared, or prepared in general, but overly prepared, and why we want to be overly prepared for our matches and for even our trainings.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing I think that comes to mind when I think of preparation is being prepared for physically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having your body physically ready to go for intense activity.
Yeah.
A football match or a soccer game, however you want to call it, is an intense activity, right? It's not something leisurely. It's a competitive thing, and it takes a lot physically to be able to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you got to think about is being physically prepared. What are your thoughts when it comes to preparing physically for a match or a training?
Yeah, it's a great question, and this topic's really, really important. Not only in the world of soccer or football, but also off the field in whatever you're doing. You know, the more you prepared you are, the more chance you have of becoming successful in what you're doing. I'll give you an example. So I was playing adults. Yeah.
It's a little fuzzy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, wait, it's a little better now.
Oh, okay. So we just had a little. See, that's what happens when you're in another world, in another country. Sorry. But
come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so as I was saying, now when I was playing adult football, adult soccer, I remember I used to have a few teammates that wouldn't prepare well for the game, and some of it including going out the night before, and that used to have a lot of really bad consequences, because I remember a couple of them, they used to drink a lot, and then come game day, you know, after about 20-25 minutes, they were on the sideline throwing up. Now, right. Yeah, you can imagine what they were drinking the night before.
Yeah.
So
not water like you should be.
Not water, not Gatorade, not Powerade. So that comes down to be that's poor preparation. Because then you had other players on my team that were really dedicated and they were very committed. So they wouldn't go out the night before.
Right.
So they made sure they were in bed early. They made sure they were drinking water all throughout the night.
Right.
Waking up early, making sure they had breakfast, arriving on time, and all of the things that we are going to talk about are into today's episode. So yeah, like being overly prepared is fundamental, and I think the more you care about something, the more prepared you will be towards it.
It cut out again for a second. What did you say?
So the more you care about something, the more you're going to be prepared for it.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah,
that was a good overview there, Coach. I like that. We touched on everything there.
Yeah.
And so I think there's different aspects of preparation. I think you touched on it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about being physically prepared and having the body ready, but it's also about the little things that you need to do maybe the day before to be mentally prepared and just have everything ready with you so that you're set up for success.
Yeah, 100%.
So one of those.
What about you?
Yeah. So it's funny when you were talking about like your adult league or when you were playing on that team. Recently over the winter, I was also playing just recreationally with some friends.
Yeah.
But we would always go it was like a Saturday night, we would go and play. And more so on the physical side of things, I would always get there like a few minutes earlier, several minutes earlier, to make sure that I just warmed up my body a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the young athlete that I used to be. I'm still a decent athlete, but I'm not the young athlete I used to be.
You're 21, right?
I shaved this off. My players think I'm a teenager, so I wish. But so I would get there earlier so that I could warm up, right? I could move around, I could move my body, I could prepare, I could dynamically stretch and do whatever I needed to do to get my body physically ready.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there were some of my friends that would show up, and they would show up right on time as soon as we were about to play. And some of them are a little bit older, and they're not what they used to be with their bodies.
Yeah.
And so they would tend to end up getting injured. And I could remember specifically one parent actually that I know, that I work with their child. He would play with us, and he pulled like his hamstring or his calf or something like 20 minutes into playing. But it was because they didn't show up to like warm up their body a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like I said, football is an intense activity. It's not it's intense. So you need to have that body ready to go for that intense activity. It's like taking a car and trying to go 0 to 100 right away. Yeah. Instead, you have to sort of build up the body to get to that point.
Correct. So you as a coach, how do you teach your players to become more prepared or prepared for an event? What are a few things you say to your players? Yeah,
so I think the first things I think of is, I guess, going back to what you were saying before, is like the day before type of stuff you want to start to think about. So I always make sure my players think about where they need to go.
Yep.
And what time they need to be there. Right? And always plan for extra time just in case.
Yeah.
Right? There's always that just in case factor. Maybe there's extra traffic. Maybe, you're running late in the morning, something happened, an emergency, whatever. You always want to know where you're going, what time you need to be there, and then plan earlier than the time you need to be there.
Correct.
So, if you need to be at the field at 9 a.m. to warm up, that's the time that your team's going to start warming up. I would plan to be there at minimum 15 minutes before that. Right? So minimum 15 minutes before the time you need to be there. And then from there, figure out, okay, most of my players have phones. They can look up how long does it take to get to the fields.
Yeah.
Does it take you 10 minutes? Does it take you 30 minutes? How long? And then you sort of backtrack. So if it takes you 30 minutes, then you need to leave the house no later than 8:15.
Yeah.
And if you need to leave at that time, then you figure out, all right, what time do I need to wake up so I could have breakfast, so I can pack my bag, make sure I have everything, so I can maybe have a shower or whatever you do in the morning.
Yep.
But I always start with, where do you need to be and what time do you need to be there, and then work backwards.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I like to do it with my players. Just work backwards.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, or what do you?
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with everything you've just said. When I coach my players on preparation, I'm always repeating the same to them. So waking up early and making sure they have breakfast. For me, that was something that I had to have every morning before a game. Like if I didn't have breakfast, I don't know how I was gonna function. So I repeat that to them. So wake up early, go to bed early, wake up early, make sure everything's prepared, and make sure that you have breakfast. And then on top of that, what you said, like making sure you know where you're going, like arriving on time. You know, you've coached teams, and the worst thing is on a game day where your mind is just, you know, you're focused so much on the game. 3 or 4 players arriving late. Coach, I'm going to be there just before kickoff, and it's like, oh,
Right.
and
Right. Yeah.
It just ruins everything. It ruins the preparation. It ruins you as a coach mentally as well, because you don't have the whole team there to prepare the warm up.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. Because, well, what I used to do when I was more so into the team coaching too, is I would tell my players, if you're not at the warm ups, there's no chance you're starting the game, because that means you're not going to be prepared to play, right? If you're not able to warm up, you're not going to physically just be able to be ready to perform at a higher level. So if you're late to warm-ups, I'm sorry, you cannot start the game.
Yeah.
And I tell my players sometimes that I tell them, like, look, I'd like to have you in the starting 11 or whatever it is, starting 9, whatever level you're playing at. But you got to make sure you're there on time, right? You got to make sure you're there so you can prepare. So that way I know you're prepared to play your best.
Yeah.
So
makes complete sense.
But I agree, because then sometimes they might still show up late, and then you got to change things around as a coach, right? It throws you off.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes there's a lot of politics in team soccer, which means sometimes your best player, that player that makes the team tick, is probably like always the player that's late. Now,
if the coach lets them get away with it.
If the coach lets them get away with it, but usually they do. They make an exception. I know I have, just because of the environment you're in, right? You want to win. You're surrounded by parents. Those kids wake up and they want to get a good result. And if there's one kid that can help you do that, you want that kid on the pitch. You know, because you can still into them, but at the same time, you want a good result, because good results build confidence.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and
it's difficult. It's a difficult balance to get.
That's very honest of you. I think that's very honest of you to say, and I think I do it. Every coach goes through that, where they're trying to balance like the winning and the development factor, right? But when it comes to that specifically, like this, like if players are late, I was really strict about it.
Yeah.
Like that, you're out of the 11. I'm sorry. Like I didn't care who it was. I really didn't. With certain things though, I did get to be a little bit more like, oh, all right, we gotta let them play. But for the most part, when it came to arriving on time, like just being on time, that was a thing. I was a stickler for being on time. Like if you're not on time, you're not prepared. Yeah. You're not prepared, you're not going to play well.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, it was like, obviously you're teaching the player good habits, but it was also, you're not going to play your best if you're not going to prepare. Right? So if I'm really going to tell that to the players, like if you don't prepare, you're not going to play your best, then I have to stick to that with the team and show them like, hey, I can't put you in because you're not going to play your best. And that's the reason I'm not putting you in.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's tough. It's a tough balance for sure.
Yeah. Because it does, I know I've become much better at it, and I've now I treat every player equally, and no matter their ability level, if they consistently arrive late, they're not prepared, then I tell them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And also, the good thing is, in the long term, you start to build trust with the other players,
100%.
which ultimately that's more important.
Yeah.
Because they'll start to realize, you know what, like Leo is noticing that he's arriving late and he's not letting him get away with it. So I need to make sure I carry on my good habit. Because
yeah, that's exactly right. Because that's you're teaching the whole team that you're teaching all the players, and that player that is arriving late, they'll get it. They'll flip. You know, sooner or later, when they see like, man, coach isn't budging, they'll figure out how to change their behavior. You know, and they'll learn, and they'll get it if you talk to them. You know, and you work with them. They'll understand at the end of the day. It's just it takes that first initial step to be like, sorry, you know, and then from there it becomes easier to be more strict about it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, 100%. Cool.
But it does. It takes a little bit of time to develop that.
Cool.
So what else would you say to players that they should be thinking about maybe to prepare for a match or even a training sometimes? What some other considerations? Because obviously, like we said, they need to know where they're going, what time to be there, arrive on time. I think we talked about that one a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you have any other things that maybe you'd want your players to have prepared or to think about?
I think, to be honest with you, I just like them. One, if they're on time and they're prepared, then they've done the first and probably hardest part of the preparation. Because once you have everyone together, you can prepare them as a team. And everyone then gets preparation. So I'm very big on that. I'm very big on just time management for me personally. Because if you're there on time when I tell you to be there, when everyone else is there, then you'll be able to prepare physically, you'll be able to prepare mentally, you'll understand, you know, what I'm trying to get out of the game, what's the tactics we're using, what are the strategies we're looking to use. And also you advance or you enhance your chances of being in the starting 11 or starting line 9. So yeah, for me personally, it's just a case of time management.
Right.
When it comes to being overly prepared, because, you know, if you show up, that's you've almost won.
Yeah. No, that's 100% right. I think, like, I forget the saying. There's some saying, maybe I'll look it up after, but it's something along the lines of like 90% of the job is being there.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you just gotta be like, you gotta be there.
Yeah,
and you gotta be there
to show up.
You know, show up and show up on time.
Yeah. Because I remember when I was out in the States, I remember there was one game we played, and this team literally arrived bang on kickoff. Like, we were all looking around saying, like, where's the opposition?
Where's the team?
Where's the team? Like, is it going to get called off or what?
Right.
But yeah, they arrived bang on kickoff. The coach gave them like the lineup straight into it. And
wow.
you could tell like it was just so easy.
Oh yeah. That must have been the best game for you guys.
Yeah. It was a very comfortable game because they didn't know what they were doing. They started to get frustrated with each other. You could tell by their body language that they just didn't know what they were doing. Like, they were lost.
Yeah.
The position their coach put them in, they started to play out of position, which obviously helped us. And it was a very comfortable game, I remember. I think we won it by quite a high margin. So, and that was just us showing up on time, prepared, and that's it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, if you ever see a team like that, I would probably argue that there's just not good leadership or good team culture in that club or team, right? There's probably not good culture there. But yeah, 100% right. It's half of the battle is just being there on time. So super, super important. I don't think we could stress that enough. We've talked mostly about that because it's so important. And I think you mentioned the other piece too, because when you, like, the reason I always had my players show up very early, like I made my players show up at minimum 50 minutes before kickoff, 45 minutes before kickoff to warm up, but also mentally, it gave them the time to sort of, say hi to their teammates, greet each other, settle in, warm up. And it got them the time mentally to get into a place where they were ready to compete. Like they were ready, like to, all right, I'm ready. Let's go. Like, let's take these guys on. Right. Because it takes kids a minute to get there. It takes them a little bit of time to go from a place where like, they're just like arriving and just like saying hi and whatever. Yeah. To getting to a place where they want to like play and they want to compete. Yeah. 100%. So that mental aspect is important too. It gives them that time to get in that mode, that competitive mode. Yeah.
And also it's, if you're a serious player, you got to remember that once you get to the pro level, that's just that's a standard requirement, being on time. Because instead of it turning into like a hobby, now it becomes work. And at that level, you're not on time, you get fined.
Yeah, 100%, and that's how it goes. And even in the college system, I mean, there's consequences, right? Yeah, being on time is huge. It's so huge for so many reasons. But it's definitely super important to make sure you know where you got to be, what time you got to be there, and plan to be there earlier. Always earlier, whatever it is. All right, 15 minutes before that is when I want to get there.
Yeah. And this also leads into the next bit, which is obviously like the warm up. So the pre-actual kickoff activity you're doing, because if you arrive with a lot of time, then you can prepare yourself physically properly. You can do a proper warm up, you can do a proper stretch, you can make sure you're drinking water before kickoff, so you're hydrated, and you just feel better overall.
No, your body's ready to go. It needs that time. Yeah. Like I said, we can't just go from 0 to 100 in 2 minutes. It doesn't work. Like that team that arrived, they weren't ready. Like they weren't physically, their bodies weren't ready to do a full out sprint and to cut, to, you know what I mean? They weren't ready for an intense football match.
That's it. So, yeah. So it's very, very, very important.
And for my older players too, maybe once you hit the teenage years and you're a serious player, the other thing that the warm-up is really, really important for, it's not only your performance, you'll perform better, but just to prevent injuries too, right? Like injury prevention, it's so key. The warm-up is so, so important to preventing injuries. And warming up properly, right? You got to warm up the right way. You can't just like go through the motions, right? And just like, you're just there to do it. You have to actually be engaged and understand it's a serious part of staying healthy, right? Because if you stretch properly, you go through the warm-up properly, the right way, you get your muscles, your body ready, your body's going to be much more safe, right, during the match. But if your body isn't physically prepared, you didn't stretch something's a little tight, whatever, that's where the injuries end up happening. So, and it may not happen that game. Like you may be fine if you don't do a warm up one game, but over time, it'll catch up. It'll catch up and it'll lead to injuries.
It will. And the higher you go up in the game, the more competitive it is. So those injuries can really hurt your playing time or your position on the team. Because I remember when I was younger, when I was 14, I was a regular on one of my teams that I used to play for, and it was so good because when you get consistency, it builds confidence. And you go into every game knowing, right, I'm going to be on the starting lineup. But why? Because I'm doing the basic correct. But I remember that there was 1 week where I got an injury, and that was honestly the end of of my playing time on that team, because after that, a new kid came in and took my place. And it was just through an injury.
And he was prepared for that, right? He was ready for his opportunity. Talking about preparation.
Yeah, exactly. So preparation doesn't necessarily always have to be the player that's starting. It's more important the player that's not starting, because your opportunity will come.
Yeah,
you just have to be ready for it. It's like being on your toes. Okay, boom, he's gone, I'm in.
Right. You got to be ready. And that's how a lot of, like you said, at the higher levels, that's how a lot of players get their breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that's college or professional level, they end up making it maybe because they weren't originally in the top 11, but someone got hurt and now we need you to jump in, and they make the most of their opportunity. Right. But because they've been preparing for that, training and doing the right things, arriving on time, the coach notices those things, they're going to give you the opportunity first. Right.
You'll get your chance.
You'll get your chance. Exactly. You'll get your chance. And I think even going down to like the really small little details, like I always tell my players, make sure that, especially because a lot of fields here in the US, I don't know about in the UK, they're now turf. A lot of fields are mostly artificial turf, artificial grass. And so I always tell my players, pack 2 pairs of shoes. Pack your indoor or your turf shoes, and pack your regular cleats, because a lot of players have different types. So if they have different types, I tell them pack 2. Pack 2 if you have them, because you never know if the turf is really flat or if it's really high or whatever it is. However the field is, you may have to adjust the shoe, or you may want to wear a different shoe based on the field. So like those small little details can make a difference, right? Or packing an extra pair of shin guards in the car, or whatever it is, those small little things, those are the things that end up making a difference in your preparation.
And you become definitely more trustworthy. Because I remember there was this one kid on a team I used to coach in the States. He'd always bring two pairs of shin pads or shin guards. So I'd ask him, why'd you bring 2? And he goes, because I always know one of my teammates is going to need a pair. And I'm like, wow.
And that's being overly prepared, right? He's ready for it, even to cover a teammate.
Exactly. And that, as a coach, I'm there thinking, wow, get on the field, boy.
Right. This guy, I don't even care. Just get on the field. Let's go.
And and it's just something very simple like that.
Right.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's about making sure that you're prepared for the situation, the match, the practice, whatever it is, but also maybe taking it a step further and like thinking, man, what if my, I don't know, my shin guards or my shin pads, what if they fall out of my bag on the way to the car and I don't notice? Or do I have an extra? Do I have whatever? I mean, take a second to think about emergencies. What if I get to the field and I realize that my shoe, it actually broke and I didn't realize? Do I have a second pair just in case? Things like that, you can be so overly prepared that you're ready for any situation.
Exactly.
So if something goes wrong, it's not like the coach is like, well, sorry, you can't play, you don't have your shoes. You're ready just in case something crazy happens.
And you're taking responsibility as well. So
that's 100% true.
I love it.
You're not blaming it on someone else, or coach, I don't know, my shin pads fell out of my bag. I don't know. Like, you're taking ownership of that. You're like, you know what, they fell out of my bag, but I have an extra one. I'm okay. I'm good to go.
There you go. Amazing. Yeah. Love that.
So there's so many little things that you could do to just be ready, and it's hard for a lot of kids to think about those things. But the earlier as a player that you can put yourself in that mindset of being overly prepared, the more likely you are to get that playing time, to get those opportunities. If you're not in the starting 11, the more likely you are to be successful at the end of the day, really.
Yeah, 100%. Now, here's a question for you. So what do you reckon is the difference? Why are some kids like that? Why are some kids not like that? Where does that stem from? Is that because of the coach? Is that because of parents? Where is that born, that preparation?
Yeah, I think that comes from the parents, really. It starts at home, right? It starts because it's not just a football related thing. It's probably, if they're unprepared for a football match, that kid is probably unprepared for the classroom on Monday morning. They probably forgot their book at home or something, right? So I always tell my players, how you do anything is how you do everything.
You read my mind.
Because it's so true. And so, if you're unprepared, if you have kids, or if you're a player that's unprepared for a match or for a training, chances are they're the type of person that's just unprepared for class or for other events, other sports, whatever it is. But I think, to answer your question, it stems from the home. It stems from the examples that they see from their parents. Are the parents like helping the kid understand that they need to be there on time? Are the parents reinforcing the idea of being prepared and maybe being ready for an emergency? Right. But I think it stems at home. I think a coach can make a big difference, but where it starts, I think it starts in the home. It starts with the parents setting the example.
100%. I agree.
So I think it starts there, but I think, like we said, I think coaches like you and I can make a difference to help the child build those habits.
Completely agree.
Because you'll typically find, I'm sure you've seen the parents that that are really prepared. They're always there on time. You really find the kids the same way.
And you enjoy coaching their kids just because the pure fact that they are prepared. They're always on time. They're always there. They're always reliable. So you obviously give their child more attention. Whereas the parents that are always running late, or they don't let you know that they're not coming to training, those are the ones that you end up always not hating. That's a strong word, but you get annoyed with the kid. But at the end of the day, it's not the kid; it's actually the parent.
Right. Many times it's not the kid; it's not their fault. Right. And that's the part that becomes tricky with the playing time and the kids not arriving on time. Because sometimes, most of the time, it's not the kid. It's not like they wanted to be late or they were running late. Sometimes it's the parents that don't get them there on time, And so it's tough as a coach to not allow that kid to get the starting 11 or the playing time when maybe it wasn't really their fault. But at the same time, if the other players are there, the other players are there. It's kind of like a tough love type of thing. Like, I'm sorry, but the other kids showed up. Your teammates were here. You got to respect that too. So it's a tough situation when you realize it's actually the parent. It's not always the kid.
100%. And it's a difficult one as a coach, because sometimes we punish the kids for something that he has no control over.
Right. Exactly.
Which really and truly, we should take responsibility as coaches and talk to the parent. Say, listen, as a result of you not arriving on time, unfortunately, your child isn't going to play this amount of minutes.
100%. That was one thing I always did with my parents. I would always have a meeting with them before the season started to remind them of the importance of being on time. And if they're not on time, then the playing time will reflect that. Because the kids that show up and they're prepared, they're going to get the preference for the games, So it is important to make sure that the parents are communicated with too. And if you're a parent out there watching this, I think it's important that you understand too the importance of getting your kid on time, right? And doing the best that you can to communicate with the coach. If you're ever going to be late or run late, out of respect for the coach, communicate with them.
Yeah.
But more times than not, and you should always be prepared, be on time.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's going to reflect in your kid's success.
Exactly. And you do make a good point, because it does come down to communication. That could be that if you aren't prepared that morning, for example, letting your coach know with a lot of time in advance that, you know what, unfortunately, blah, blah, has happened. We're going to be running late. Then you as a coach will understand it a bit better, because you're going to think, right, okay, they will be here. They've let me know. We'll get on with it. But
right.
When you don't communicate, that's when issues start to arise.
Yeah.
That's when you start to treat a player differently. That's where you start to get annoyed with a parent, because there's no communication between the two. So
100%. That's exactly right. And I think too, if the parent is able to, because a lot of parents are competitive out there. A lot of parents want their kids to be the best on their teams, right? They want their kids to perform well, to enjoy playing, to do well.
Correct.
And if you're a parent that is like that wants your kid to do well, to perform well, to do well, then you got to understand a lot of that has to start with you as the parent too, right? It has to start with them. You can't say, I want my kid to be the best and I want the best for my kid, but you're always showing up late, or you're missing a training or missing a game, or whatever it is. If you're not prepared and you're not there, like we said, half the battle is showing up and showing up on time, then you as a parent can't really say that you want the best, right? Because you're not doing the best yourself, right? So you have to make sure you're trying to get there on time, do the best you can, so that you give your kid a chance to be successful.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. I know some parents will probably disagree.
And that's okay. That's okay.
That's
Everyone
okay. But I think at the same time, parents understand it.
Right.
If you don't communicate that to them, then they will say to you, why didn't you communicate that to us?
Right.
If that's the reason why my child isn't playing enough minutes. So yeah, I mean, as a coach, the more you communicate with parents, the better. And as parents, vice versa, works exactly the same way. So, and then as players, just making sure you're prepared for the event.
Yeah. And, speaking on the issue of like not punishing the player because it's the parent's fault, I do have some players that are in that situation. Like the player loves it. And they may once in a while be late. They've gotten better. I'm thinking of one player in my brain. They've gotten a lot better. But once in a blue, they'll be late. And I'll say, hey, why are you late? And they'll say, oh, my mom left. We left late. My mom wasn't ready. She's like, I was ready at the door. I was waiting.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell the player, I'll ask them, I was like, well, did you tell mom the night before what time you needed to leave?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll look at me and they'll be like, no. And so even though sometimes it's for the players out there, sometimes you can't get yourself to the games, you can be so prepared that you tell your parents what time you need to leave.
Exactly.
Like you tell your or whoever's taking you to the game, you tell them like, hey mom, hey dad, hey whoever's taking you, I need to leave by 8:30 in the morning tomorrow. Can you please take me tomorrow by 8:30? We need to leave so I can be on time.
Yeah.
I promise you as a player, if you do that with your parents, they're going to be like, wow, okay, I'm going to try my best now.
Yeah.
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 And so I even tell players like, I know that's not your fault, but how do you change how do you help that situation? Don't just say, oh, it's my parents' fault.
Yeah.
How do you fix it? How do you figure out how to help your own situation,
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Yeah.
And she's gotten better. She's gotten a lot better. She's actually been bugging her mom, like, Mom, I need to leave.
It's good. It's good. Funny enough, sometimes you get kids that are more prepared than parents.
Yeah, that's exactly the situation. That's exactly the situation.
So, but yeah, no, I like that you do that with your players because it's very important.
Yeah,
just builds good habits from a young age.
Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, we can't. Some parents might not agree with some of the things that we say as coaches or the way we think. But if we can get the player to understand the habits that they need,
yeah,
sometimes they're the ones that help change their parents a little bit.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. They help the parents understand.
Yeah, 100%. Love that.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. But I think it's about being there and being on time.
Yeah.
Just be there. You got to be there.
Yeah. I mean, to sum it all up, I think time management is the number one for being overly prepared. It's all down to time management, because if you're not there on time, you can't warm up. If you're not there on time, you don't know what's going on. So You're always going to be confused. And also that causes stress as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you're running late to places,
and you're rushing and yeah. And it's funny you bring that up. I remember, I don't know how old I was. I was maybe like 10, 11, 12, around that age. And I was going for a tryout in New Jersey, and I live in New York. And it was maybe like a 2-hour drive.
Wow.
I remember we were going, or I forget, I don't know if it was a tryout or like a clinic. I don't remember exactly the event. But we were driving, and both of my parents were taking me. And we were in the car, and there was a lot of traffic. I don't know if you've been to New York City, but there's plenty of traffic in New York City.
Yeah.
So it was we were like stuck at one of the tunnels to get to New Jersey. And I'm in the car freaking out. I'm like looking at the clock, like, guys, we're going to be late. We're going to be late. Like, I'm not going to be allowed to do the clinic or whatever it was. And I remember I was getting stressed as the kid, as the player. And my parents were like trying to calm me down, like, no, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And so I think it's also important to know yourself as a player. If you know, like, you're going to get stressed out, make sure you do everything you can to be on time.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I've been through them as well.
Yeah.
Just arriving just on time. And it's, to be honest with you, if you do it once and you really stress yourself out, you shouldn't really do it again, because if you're someone that learns from your sort of mistakes, then you put it right. And I had a similar event to yours as well with coaching. Arrived back like maybe 10 minutes till the start of a clinic I think I was doing. And it's horrendous. Like, the worst thing for me is parents arriving before me.
Yes.
I hate that.
I hate that too. I need to be the first one at the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially for training. Like, training for me, I need to be prepared. I need to have everything set up. I need to be good to go. I don't like showing up late.
Yeah. And I remember, like, all the parents were there. There was about 5 minutes left till it started. And there's me with my balls, my bag. And it took like another maybe 10 minutes for me to start, to put the session together. So put my cones out, etc. And then when we finally started, I was like, what am I doing? I forgot the session. And I just went with the flow, and it was horrendous.
And those are always the worst sessions. Those are always the worst sessions. Right?
So from that day, I said, no, this isn't happening again. I can't do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's happened to me too. That's happened to me too.
And it's horrible. Well, obviously, as a coach, it's horrible because then you're arriving late. You have to say, "Oh, I'm sorry" to parents. You're apologizing. Your mindset is somewhere else now. Oh no! Even kids start to say, "Where's the coach?" And that you're late.
Right, right. When even the kids are like, "Wait, where's Coach at? What's going on?"
Exactly. And there's Coach Leo arriving with bags.
Oh, there's Coach in the parking lot pulling up with his bags just now.
Yeah. He's just pulling in.
All right.
No.
But that's the worst. You're right. That's the worst. And it happens. It's happened to me before. And I hate it. I hate it because I always preach to my players, be on time, be on time, be on time. So, but of course emergencies happen and things happen and life happens. So it happens to everybody. And it's happened to me before. And I hate it. I hate it. It's the worst. Yeah. It's the worst when you show up and there's already parents there.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So yeah. So do the best you can. Be on time. Be there.
Exactly. Be there before your coach.
Hey, your coach will be impressed. Let me tell you, if you beat your coach.
Yeah. If you're there before I arrive, which I'm usually there about 45 minutes before the start, I will be very. You are in the starting lineup.
Right. Exactly. If you're there before I am.
Yeah.
Listen, you're my assistant. You're coaching today. Okay, you're there before I am. You do whatever you like.
That's it. You play whatever position you want.
Anywhere. And you tell everyone else what to do.
But yeah, so true. Awesome. Great stuff.
All right. So good stuff today. Anything else you want to add before I guess we wrap up, Coach Leo? Or
no, I think we touched on probably the most important thing, was just we're being overly prepared. It just comes down to time. Because if you master time, you can master everything else. Yeah. And time you don't get back. So make the most of it, which means arrive on time when you should be, so that you can be prepared mentally and physically on game day, but also know that preparation starts before well.
Yes.
It's not just an hour or 2 hours before an actual event. It's like, right, 24 hours before, what do I need to do?
100%.
Making sure I've got everything ready. I know where I'm going. I know what time I have to be in bed. I know how many hours of sleep I'm getting. It has to be regimented. If it isn't, then you're not going to be successful. Because the higher up in the game you get, you're going to be competing against people that are going to become like that. That are going to be like time management obsessed, dedicated, disciplined, committed. And if you want to get into that 1%, you have to be different.
You have to be different. I love that. You have to be different. It's so true. It's so true. 100%. And last thing I'll add, and then we'll wrap it up, is do the small things too. Don't forget to pack your bag, have your water ready, pack an extra pair of shoes if you know it's a field that you're not sure about or you've never been to. Pack an extra pair of shin pads if you have. Whatever it is, you need to do those small things to make sure that you're ready for any situation.
Exactly. So love it. Good advice, Coach Fernando.
Good stuff today, Coach. I'm jealous though. I wish I was out in Spain where you are, man.
You will be one day.
I'll make my way there. You
will be one day.
I'll make it one day. So guys, again, if you're watching this, if you're a player or a parent out there, if you guys have any questions, or if you just want to connect with Coach Leo or myself, we will put our social media and our emails on here, so you can feel free to contact us. We'd love to engage with players, help players with any questions that they may have, or even parents, if you're a parent out there watching. We're here to help you guys.
Complete. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Fernando, as always. Always on time.
I love it.
All right, Fernando. I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Let's wrap it up. Have a good rest of the week, and I'll catch you next week.
Take care.